Hi everybody, my name's Jonathan Davis and welcome to today's webinar, which is an introduction to Trimble TerraFlex. Move to the next slide, there we go. So what we'll cover today, first the speakers will introduce ourselves, then we'll look at Trimble GIS technology in a slightly broader sense, then we'll run through an overview of the TerraFlex solution, and then have a look at some example use cases before closing out with some questions and answers. So what I'd ask is, we have a lot of people on the webinar today, so rather than take people on and off mute, what I invite you to do is ask questions at any time during the webinar using the question box in the webinar GoToWebinar tool here. So please just feel free to enter questions in that text box as we go through. And between Dan and myself, who are presenting today, we'll try to keep track of those as they come in and answer what we can, and then we'll run through them at the end as well, or at least as many as we can. But if we don't get to your question, then you can be sure that you'll get an email in the next couple of days with some more information. So with that, just to introduce the speakers, again, my name's Jonathan Davis. I've work for Trimble down in New Zealand in a business development role. I've worked for Trimble for about 20 years now in a variety of roles and locations. And then all the way across the Pacific Ocean, Dan Colbert joins me. So Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, Dan Colbert. I work on the sales team in the Americas, supporting our distribution channel and customers on a technical level. So I appreciate the invite from Jonathan, and glad to get the message of TerraFlex out to his region.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll start with just a look at the broader range of technologies that are available from the Trimble GIS business, and it ranges from sort of the classic or the more traditional tools which are used to capture information about individual features, through some of our scanning technologies, all the way up to some of our vehicle-mounted mobile mapping solutions, which in my mind, I often associate those technologies with more engineering workflows. But they're technologies that are very applicable in a GIS sense as well. And they're very, very efficient at capturing a lot of information very quickly. And then through the processing software, we have the ability to automatically extract features to populate a GIS database. So there's a whole range of technologies that are available. And if we look at it in terms of the various product categories, you can get a slightly better picture of the different types of technologies and solutions that are available. So it ranges from the traditional handhelds and modular GNSS systems at the top, and then of course the software that runs on those devices. And then there are some more of our emerging technologies on the bottom there. So the last couple of weeks I've run different webinars, one on Trimble Sight Vision, which is our augmented reality solution, and then another on Trimble Catalyst, which is our GNSS positioning as a service for Android devices. So hopefully some people on the webinar today have been able to join me for those sessions. But this view just shows it's a very, very broad portfolio and a very, very broad range of technologies that we can bring together in this GIS space. If we look more at the core of the GIS business and mobile GIS data collection technologies, every solution in my mind really comprises of 4 different components. The first one is the mobile device or the handheld that's being taken in the field. The second is the software that runs on that device, of course. The third is the addition of a high accuracy GNSS component if the accuracy that your device alone is achieving is not sufficient. And then the fourth is the delivery mechanism for the data that you've collected in the field. And that's the tool that you use to create the deliverables so that the data you've collected using the Trimble technology in the field can then be passed through to your chosen system of record. And the piece of the puzzle that we're focusing on today is the software, the TerraFlex software that runs on the mobile device. So a little bit of an overview of the TerraFlex software. It's Trimble's next generation GIS data collection software, and there are two key points around the software. One is that it leverages the cloud for data synchronization and also data security. And then the second is that it's very, very easy and flexible in how it can be deployed and used. So it can collect new data, or there's also an inspection workflow where you can take already collected or already existing data from your GIS back out to the field for updates. It works online, of course, but it also works offline. It's capable of logging GNSS data for post-processing workflows. And then it works across a range of operating system platforms as well, as we'll see on the next slide. And then its availability is via subscription. So those subscriptions are either monthly or annually, or we can put multiples of those together to create what we call a fixed term license for the software as well. So just starting with some basics around the mobile GIS data collection technologies that are available and how TerraFlex fits into this. So here are some of the devices that TerraFlex can run on, and of course there are a range of Trimble devices, but an important component here is, or an important consideration here is that TerraFlex can run across Windows, Android, and iOS operating systems, so that it's very, very easy to deploy the software across a mixed fleet of devices. So if I look at some of the Trimble ones for a second, I'll start on the left-hand side with the Trimble TDC 600. That is it's a rugged device with a sunlight readable screen and very, very high battery capacity. But for all intents and purposes, in this instance, it can be compared with a regular cell phone. The next one is the one I really wanted to put the spotlight on, which is the Trimble TDC 150, which is what we call an integrated handheld. And that means that it has the mobile phone component integrated with a high accuracy GNSS antenna and receiver in a similar way that we have done over the years with the Geo Explorer brand. The Trimble TDC 150 is the next generation product that follows on from the Geo Explorer and is running the Android operating system, and then of course is running the TerraFlex software as well. Then we have some other options in the portfolio with larger screens that don't have that high accuracy GNSS integrated. And then, as I already mentioned, the TerraFlex software will run across a range of devices from other companies as well, across the various operating systems that are available. Another important consideration is accuracy. So the accuracy that you'll achieve with your cell phone is, in my experience, about 10 meters, depending on your environment. It could be a little bit better, or it could be a lot worse than that. It's about 10 meters, and that's what I've specified here for the Trimble TDC 600. If you want to have better accuracy than what that device can achieve by itself, then there are two options. The first one is to take that device and add an external GPS or GNSS system to it. And I've got a couple shown there. The top one is Trimble Catalyst, which is our GNSS positioning capability, which is offered as a service to your Android device. And you can see the accuracy range that technology offers. And then the alternative down the bottom is the Trimble R1 and R2. They are Bluetooth receivers that offer a similar accuracy, but differ in that they fall into a more traditional purchasing model of normally some sort of capital investment. The other alternative is on the left-hand side there, which is migrating, or is another option, which is to migrate toward an integrated handheld, which again, as I've mentioned, integrates the mobile device with a high accuracy GNSS receiver. And for all of those folks out there that have experience with the Geo Explorer product lines, this is the updated integrated handheld from Trimble. The reasons why you might choose one or the other, the Geo Explorer over the years and now the TDC 150 is very popular because it is sort of one device that you take into the field, and it's very fit for purpose for, depending on exactly what you're doing. The reason you might choose to go with a more generic mobile device and use it in combination with an external GNSS receiver is if you want to perhaps share that high accuracy GNSS capability across a group of users, each person having their own mobile device. The next few slides just show some photos of some of these different configurations. So here, this gentleman is using a TDC 150 with that high accuracy GNSS component integrated. That he's just holding this in his hand, obviously. So depending on the configuration, he could be using centimeter accuracy, or he could be using 1 meter accuracy. The fact that it's just in his hand probably suggests to me that he's probably closer to that 1 meter accuracy. In this case, this gentleman is using the TDC 600, and it looks like there is no external GNSS receiver. So the accuracy that this person is achieving in this instance is probably closer to that 10 meter mark. If he wants to improve the accuracy, then he might look at a setup like this. So in this case, it's a generic device, but it's connected to an external GNSS antenna, which is mounted on a backpack. And presumably, this person is collecting information about the tree, that they're standing right beside. So again, it might be half meter or meter level accuracy that is sufficient for this task. And then to achieve the highest level of accuracy, we usually recommend the use of a survey pole with the GPS mounted on top of the pole. And that's because the position that the GPS system is actually measuring is where the antenna is on top of the pole. But by using a fixed height pole and a level bubble on the side of the pole to hold it, as vertical as you can, that is how the position from the GPS antenna gets translated to that point of interest on the ground. And using this type of setup, you can measure the position on the ground to within sort of that 1 to 2 centimeter accuracy pretty easily. So now that we have our field solution understood in terms of the accuracy that we can use, and we know what mobile devices we can use, and the TerraFlex software that runs on it, of course, this slide shows sort of an overview of the workflow, or how the data flows from the different components. So we have our device with our TerraFlex software, and in this case, we do have a GPS an external GPS capability on the system on the left as well. So that's used out in the field to collect information about different features, and then the data flows through to our Connect Maps, which is our cloud platform, and that is used to do basic QA, QC, to check and edit data, perhaps consolidate data from different users or different sessions out in the field. And then from there, you can export to a number of different or common GIS formats, so that the data can be integrated back into a system of record. So for Esri customers specifically, it's the same principle, but instead of Connect Maps, we have a product called Trimble Positions, which is an add-in for that ArcGIS platform. So it does a lot of the same things as Connect Maps, but it resides within an add-in to the ArcGIS environment, so providing a slightly more direct connection to the data that's in the GIS. The examples that I'm going to run through over the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about Connect Maps, but for Esri customers, just know that we have an add-in for the ArcGIS platform that can perform a lot of the same functions, but in a more streamlined way. So for the data collection workflow, I've summarized the various steps here, and I'm going to run through them one by one and just give you a brief taste of how it works and what the user interface looks like. But very, very quickly, the workflow starts in Connect Maps, where you build the forms that will then be used out in the field to collect the data. So you build the forms in Connect Maps, you publish those forms out to TerraFlex, out to the mobile devices that are being used in the field. And then the folks out in the field using the software on the devices, they collect information about the features of interest. And then when the mobile devices are online, that data is synchronized back into Connect Maps, where you can review, do your QA/QC, you can edit the data, you can, like I said, perhaps consolidate data across multiple users, across multiple sessions, and then export it from there into a number of common formats for integration into the system of record. So just to have a quick look at or a slightly deeper look at this process and what the UI looks like. So here we are in Connect Maps, and you can see that there's some data, some point and line data that already exists. Here I want to add another layer so that my field workers can go out and collect information. And you can see that the data that exists there, there are 4 layers. One is utility points, the second is vegetation, the third is road features, and the fourth is utility lines. So I want to go out and collect some information about some street furniture in this case. So I click on the plus button and then select New Template, and that opens the template editor. And then the first tab here lets me do some sort of higher level things, I guess, around this particular template. So I can set the name, I can set the geometry type, I can set the color that it will use when it comes back into the map in Connect Maps, which was the previous screen, and then some other details as well. So with the one click of a button, I fill that out. So I've given it the name Street Furniture. I've changed the color to blue. I've kept it as a point feature. I'm requiring that when the form is filled out in the field that the geometry is collected as well. And then there are some other settings down there as well. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. You'll notice you have the opportunity to set a required accuracy. And then since that is below a certain threshold, a note pops up telling me that a Trimble device might be required in the field to achieve that level of accuracy. So that's the sort of the cover of the template, so to speak. Now I go into the Fields tab to actually build the form or build the form for the information, or that's going to prescribe what information I want when it's out in the field. And on the left-hand side, you've got all the different types of fields that you can use. And to build the form, you click on the type of field that you want and drag it across into the space on the right here. So you can see the different types of fields that you can use. There are text fields, numeric fields. You can measure lengths, angles. There are yes, no choices. There are multiple choice fields. You can insert the date. You can read barcodes. You can take images with the camera of your device. You can write on the screen if you want your operator to sign that a feature has been collected. Then there are some layout options to help build a template that looks nice and is easy to use in the field. And then there are what we call some auto field options as well. And this is information that the user doesn't enter, but the system automatically records every time a template is saved. And that's things like who the operator was, the date that it was recorded, the estimated spatial accuracy of the position that is recorded, things like that. So again, just with the click of a button, my template magically appears. So you can see I've dragged over a numeric field and I've called it tag number. So that's going to ask the operator to enter the ID of the asset, or the tag number of the asset when they encounter some street furniture in the field. The next field I've dragged across is a multiple choice field, and I've called it furniture type. And here I've just listed some of the, some things that the field staff might be running into, when they're out collecting the information. There is an other option here. So if I haven't collected, or if I haven't listed everything in the template that the user is going to encounter in the field, then they have the option to enter some text to record, information about different features. And then down below, I've got a yes/no field. Is maintenance on this piece of street furniture needed? And then down below, I've got another multiple choice field, which just lists some different types of actions in case maintenance is needed. So that's a very, very simple field. Very simple template, but just shows you how some of the fields can come together in a way that makes sense for, for different data collection projects. The next tab is creating some rules. So just to help the efficiency with which the templates are used in the field, you can create some different conditional rules. And just the very simple example I've got here is if the operator selects yes on the is maintenance needed question, then the action menu is enabled, and they then need to select, from the various actions with respect to what type of maintenance is needed. So it's a very, very simple example, but it's a way that you can make the forms easier to navigate and easier to use in the field by creating some of these types of rules. So next step is to, once the form has been created, you publish that form out to TerraFlex. And you can see here that in the template editor, I hit the publish button, and now that street furniture layer exists in my project. So when I hit publish, it also sends it out to TerraFlex. So TerraFlex users that are in the same project, now they have this form, and you can see it on the screenshot on the left there. There's a street furniture button, and then they can use that to collect information about street furniture. So here are a couple of screenshots from TerraFlex. It's a very, very easy application to use in the field. It is as simple as selecting the project that you're collecting data for, and then when you're in the project, there is a map view. But in the screen that's on the left there, you can see it lays out the forms that are available to use for collection. So in this instance, I just press on that street furniture button, and then a new form pops up, and I populated the various fields there. So I entered a tag number. I said it's a bench. Yes, maintenance is needed, and the action is that it needs to be painted. And you can see that I've also collected the location of that record as well with very high accuracy in this instance.
Yeah, Jonathan, just one thing to jump in here, that one really interesting and really neat feature of TerraFlex is actually in the office, you'll set up the any real-time configuration settings, which will be automatically sent down to the field device and TerraFlex in the field, which means that the field user doesn't have to configure things like VRS settings or any of the real-time configurations in order to achieve that high accuracy. So the idea is that it's very simple for the field users to pick up. collect data, and then also collect data with extremely high accuracy without having to know how to configure everything because it's already been done in the office.
Good point, Dan. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. So the data's been collected in TerraFlex now, and when the device is either online in the field or comes back online as you come back into town or into the office, that data is automatically synchronized back into Connect Maps via the cloud. And what this is showing is that same record in the mobile device in TerraFlex, and then that record that I collected synchronizes with Connect Maps, and it pops up in the map screen there. And on the right hand side, if I click on that feature, then it shows me the details, and I can see the same information that I entered when I was in the field. So one of the main sort of tasks that you can use Connect Maps for is to check the data. So if you can consolidate the data, of course, between users or from different users, from different data collection sessions, but then you need to check the data. You need to do the QA/QC. So there's a couple of things I can do here. Like if this record is erroneous for whatever reason, then I have the option to delete it. Or if I press the edit button, which I'll do here, then it opens that form up again, and from the office I have the chance to update the information that was entered in the field. So I could correct the tag number if that's what was wrong. In this form I didn't add a photo, but if I had a photo and I could see the tag number was wrong, then I could correct the tag number. In this instance, just for the purposes of this demonstration, I've included, in addition to the bench needing to be painted, the vegetation around the bench also needs to be cleared. So it's just an example of how that information can be corrected as it comes through the Connect Maps platform.
Just one more point here, John. While TerraFlex Mobile synchronizes to the cloud using the internet, TerraFlex Mobile can actually be used in a completely offline manner. So all that's required is that the user downloads the projects and project configurations to the device, and then can go out into the field without any internet connection whatsoever and capture as much data as is necessary. And then when they return to the office or the house, wherever there's a Wi-Fi connection or cellular connection, the data can then be sent up. So it can be used either online or offline to get the data between field and office.
Thanks, Dan. So the last step from Connect Maps there is to export the data so that it can be sent back to or sent to the system of record. Right, so that was the data collection workflow. There's also an inspection workflow, and I'm not going to go through this one step by step because it's largely the same, but it really differs by the first couple of points there, and that is, of course, that you've got existing data in your project here. So you've brought data into Connect Maps, and then you select the relevant data, create what we call a to-do or create a task, and then you can send that data and that task to users out in the field for them to take that record into the field, navigate to the feature, and then they can update the details that are in that record. And then from there, it's similar to what I just showed, where the data syncs back into Connect Maps and then can be sent back to the system of record. So just a few sort of closing comments. I mentioned that a couple of keys for TerraFlex are, or one of the keys for TerraFlex is its flexibility. So the couple of comments that Dan added there, they really play to that. So it can be used to collect data when it's online, but it also supports an offline workflow as well. when online, you can be receiving real-time corrections, but it also supports collecting GNSS data for post-processing in the ArcGIS environment as well. And then the final comment there is that in addition to collecting the GNSS location, if you can't visit a point of interest or a feature that you want to collect information about, perhaps it's over the other side of a fence, or there's a safety issue, so you can't get to that feature, then you have the opportunity to connect a laser rangefinder so that you can measure the location of those remote points as well. So that was just a reasonably short overview of the TerraFlex system and how it works together with our Trimble Connect or Connect Maps platform. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he can take us through some customer examples.
Yeah, thanks, John. We've just got a couple of examples of some users in both North and South America. And the first one, John, if you'd flip it over to the next slide there. There we go. Is a customer called Boardwalk Pipeline. They're based in the Southeast United States, and this company was, before using TerraFlex, was using a large paper form and a cumbersome process to record that information both in the field and in the office, and decided to use TerraFlex as primarily as a pen and paper replacement. The biggest reason was that it's very simple to train the field users. Most of the users capturing this data are very skilled at pipeline work and not so much in the use of technology or devices in the field. So the ease of use for the field users was critical to them. Also critical to Boardwalk was the ability to integrate the data that was captured in the field directly into their proprietary backend systems. So the fact that Connect Maps is a cloud application means that they could hook up their own systems to ours and capture the data to pull that data directly into their systems without manual intervention. So a massive time savings in the office, as well as ease of deployment in the field. And specifically, that organization has a little over 150 users at the moment, but they're looking to expand the use of TerraFlex within other disciplines inside of that organization. So depth of cover surveys, foreign line crossings, those sorts of things are all additional uses for TerraFlex inside their organization. So a big success story for us in the Southeast United States. The second one brings us to our to the neighbors to the north up in Canada. The Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. The short version is OMNRF. It is an organization, again, obviously focused on natural resource management. The reason that they went for TerraFlex was for the ease of use and again the ease of deployment. With over 250 users, it's difficult to maintain continuity and fluency with the application. So a user's ability to pick up the application and learn it himself or herself within just a few minutes is critical to the success of their operation. And they're capturing all sorts of things from doing fish surveys or forest boundaries. They're mapping invasive species. They're doing facility as-builds, forest road mapping and maintenance. So many different users, many different disciplines, and it's been a big success up there for that organization up in Canada. And then the final one is an organization based down in Brazil, Neoenergia, who are using Catalyst to map their utility infrastructure, and specifically the utility infrastructure engineering. So when a new power system component is installed, whether it be a power pole or buried utility, they're capturing the as-built but then they're also using it to validate the accuracy and completeness of their existing inventories, and they're finding quickly and easily that that data can be updated and deployed across the organization to make better decisions. In that case, TerraFlex is also paired with Trimble Catalyst, and for over 300 users, it means again, ease of use and ease of deployment are critical, and that's those were some of the best examples that we could come up with for them, and they've been very successful with both TerraFlex and Catalyst at Neoenergia.
Thanks, Dan. So just before we get into some questions, I just wanted to highlight one of the tools that are available. So anyone on the webinar who is a TerraSync customer that might be looking to migrate to TerraFlex and take advantage of some of the things that we've just described, one of the barriers to doing so is how to manage the data dictionary file and in an efficient way, so that the transition from one solution to the next is not too painful and tedious. There is what we've called a TerraSync to TerraFlex application that runs on your desktop available, and what that does is exactly what it sounds like. So you load your data dictionary file, then log into your into Connect Maps, and then you select the project within Connect Maps, and then when you hit upload, it's going to take your data dictionary file and create a series of templates in your Connect project or your Connect Maps project that you know, is the same as the data dictionary file that you've been using with the TerraSync software. So it just brings, or it helps with the efficiency of anyone out there that's using TerraSync that might be looking to migrate to the flagship TerraFlex system. So in summary, just before we get to the questions, TerraFlex is the next generation mobile data collection or field application from Trimble. It's the couple of key things. One is the flexibility, but the other is that it leverages the cloud for convenience and security. And as Dan mentioned, you know, whilst it is leveraging the cloud and it offers a lot of benefits, there are, you know, the flexibility provides for offline use and workflows as well. I thought the examples that Dan gave really helped, I think, understand the ease at which the solution can be deployed across both small and large organizations, perhaps that already have a large number and a mixed fleet of mobile devices. The app can simply be downloaded and folks can start collecting data just using the devices that are already in their pocket. And then again, on that flexibility note, you know, that really is the key for me to the solution. That, you know, it's very, very easy to create your own forms, to send those out to the teams in the field across, you know, mixed fleets of devices. You know, some folks might be working online, some offline. Some people that have a high accuracy requirement, you know, they have the options to receive real-time corrections if they're online, or to collect GNSS data for post-processing if they're not. And then, you know, it's supporting those two workflows that I mentioned, which is data collection and then the inspection workflow, where you're taking data from your GIS out into the field for updates. So before we go to questions, the last thing I'll do is just point to the website there, terraflex.trimble.com. There's a lot of information there about the solution. There are some, I think there's some more different examples on how the technology can be used, and there's also a link to our dealer locator too. So if you're interested in learning more about the solution and you would like someone to contact you, then go to that link and have a look for our dealer locator, and that will then you'll have somebody reaching out to you in the near future with some more information. So with that, I'll put the specification or the data sheet for the software up on the screen now, just because that's a little bit of food for thought as you're sort of absorbing and reflecting on the information that we've discussed. And we'll turn it over to questions. Dan, have you had the chance to have a look at any whilst we've been going through?
I have. One good question that came through is the question about how TerraFlex is in comparison to other GIS data collection software, specifically ArcGIS Collector, which is an Esri product. For those of you who are familiar, we see TerraFlex as not necessarily directly tied to the Esri environment. So where Collector requires an ArcGIS online account and knowledge about how to set up and configure the back-end systems for Collector, TerraFlex is meant to be entirely flexible so that any user, with regardless of their savviness with ArcGIS or the Esri online platform, can be successful with TerraFlex, and that translates to the entire team. So TerraFlex again is designed as a flexible alternative to something like a more Esri-centric collection workflow. Another thing too is that isn't available in Collector is the office side configuration of real-time settings, nor the ability to post-process. So Collector doesn't offer any of those functions. So those are advantages to TerraFlex for sure. There's a couple of other questions. One other question that came through was about does TerraFlex support the use of laser rangefinders to do offsetting? Yes, it does. It was actually a recent feature that we added to TerraFlex. We didn't cover it today in kind of the overview presentation, but we do support the use of laser technology rangefinders. The 200 series and the 360 series devices are supported on all of our platforms. So you can capture remote features using TerraFlex. And if you use TerraFlex, you can download it and try it out yourself. If you have a device or a rangefinder, you can see that functionality in action. It's actually a fantastic workflow that many users of GIS data collection software haven't seen before. It's very flexible, and I encourage you to check that out. Just a couple of other questions. Sorry, yeah, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna mention another couple here, Dan. I see you've already answered them in the question and answer box here, but just so that everybody can benefit from the answer, one of the questions was, where did it go? Can we add multiple photos to each record, or each recorded point? Sorry. So the answer there is yes. The example that I showed, I didn't include a photo field in the template that I created, but you can add a photo field, and you can include the option to collect multiple images per record as well.
Yeah, and it looks like a couple of other questions coming through about using TerraFlex to either navigate or perform stakeout functions. Yes, TerraFlex does support navigation to features. It also supports the ability to enter in a coordinate and navigate to it. But at this point, we don't have any dedicated stakeout functionality or user experience. That's feedback we've received quite a bit, and we hope to add that feature, enhanced navigation and stakeout functionality to a future release. So keep your eyes out for that sort of functionality. And then another one that's come up a couple of times in the questions is the ability to support custom custom coordinate systems or local coordinate systems. That functionality is also being developed at the moment, and we'll release it as soon as that functionality is available. So that is the next big feature and functionality that you'll see in TerraFlex. So we're excited about that one.
So there's another question down here. I'm looking at, so how does the handheld unit, the TDC 150, so that's the integrated handheld that I mentioned, how does that perform under canopy with respect to accuracy? So that's a good question, Trent. And it's always a tricky one to answer because there are so many factors involved. I've got quite a long history with GNSS in Trimble. And that was always a question that we received. How is this product going to perform in this environment? And when you describe the environment, you know, in one or two words, it usually doesn't provide enough information to be able to answer accurately or reliably. So the thing that I always suggest is just to test. And if you want to see a unit and a device in action, then we can certainly arrange that. What I would add to that answer is, you know, one of the things I think that Trimble GNSS technology has been renowned for over our 40-year history now is the quality and the robustness and the reliability of our GNSS positioning algorithms. So what I mean by that is all GNSS systems have their limits, but if there is a system that will get you into a certain environment or that will work in a certain environment, then Trimble is usually at least equal to you know, anything else that's out there on the market. So I hope that goes some way to answering that question. But certainly the TDC 150 though, it's, you know, it has a very high grade antenna and receiver integrated into the platform. So if I was to compare that with other Trimble products, the R2 for example, then I would expect them to be reasonably comparable, you know, in whichever environment they're in.
There's one question in here that's an interesting one. It's about is it possible to take voice recordings or attach other types of media to data captured in TerraFlex? Another feature that we've heard quite a bit requested for. At the moment, TerraFlex only supports images to be captured, but in the future we intend to support things like video capture, audio capture. And even potentially standard documents like PDFs and Word documents, that sort of thing. So anything that can be attached to a feature. So today only support for photos at the moment. Let's see.
And then there, Dan, around the stakeout question that you had before, and the question is what software can be used for stakeout instead of TerraFlex? The one that I know of is if you sort of move over into our, you know, what we sort of call our survey portfolio, then we have a lot of different options in terms of point stakeout there, you know, using either high accuracy GNSS or some other positioning technologies too. Dan, have you got any other options other than, say, Trimble Access with an R12?
Yeah, there's another kind of a hybrid survey GIS application that runs on Android today that we have, and it's an application called Trimble PenMap, and PenMap does have a stakeout function available in it. So that would be another alternative to something like Trimble Access.
Okay, thanks Dan. I think conveniently enough, there's actually a webinar for that in the next 24 hours or so from Trimble. So, so that would be something to watch out for as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think just trying to scroll through the last bit that are coming on here. Here's a great question from Nick came in here about, is there likely to be the auto fields or the metadata fields that that display the XYZ or the lat, long, and altitude in the form. Yes, that's also something that'll be coming. That's a feature that some number of users have been asking for. So it's something that we can fairly easily add to it, and you'll see that feature come at some point here in the future. And then I think maybe one final question here, Jonathan, and it's pretty specific. It's about how users of Manifold GIS might use TerraFlex to bring data into that. And I'll answer that question in kind of a generic fashion, where the outputs from Trimble TerraFlex are designed to be generic at the moment, but we are looking at ways to integrate with other third-party applications, which include things like QGIS, Manifold GIS. We of course have a plugin for Esri systems, but we expect that the exports that are available now will be at least portable between those third-party systems. So something like a shape file or a CSV file can be brought into something like Manifold at the moment. But we're looking at ways to more directly integrate with systems like that.
Very good. So thank you, Dan. We'll wrap it up there. There were, I think, a couple of questions in the list there that we didn't get to, but we'll send you some more information via email in the next couple of days. And on the screen now, I'll just leave it there for another 30 seconds or so after we sort of stop talking. But I've just got the contact details for Dan and myself on the screen. So of course, if you've got any follow-up questions or would like to learn more about the technology, then please feel free to contact either of us. So thank you everyone for attending, and again, thank you Dan for the session today.
My pleasure. Thank you.